she did for you. Whenever you're ready.
How many of y'all have ever heard, "I had a dream"? Everyone has. Those famous words came out of the mouth of Martin Luther King Jr., who was a social rights activist fighting for equality and freedom against racial segregation. The Declaration of Independence states that whenever any form of government becomes destructive, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. My name is Abigail Ennis, and today I'm going to go over the Civil Rights Movement, what it is, and how it has shaped America today. I have 3 main points: what the Civil Rights Movement is, how violence breeds more violence, and the non-violent resistance. So to start off, what is the Civil Rights Movement? The Civil Rights Movement is a worldwide series of political movement of equality before the law. So basically, the Civil Rights Movement is a very large term, but today I'm going to focus on the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. And the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s was a fight led by African Americans fighting against racial segregation in the States. Let's see here. So through this, we had several laws passed. It started off with the Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. This was a consolidation of 5 different cases put into one for the Supreme Court, who ultimately and effectively decided to end racial segregation in public schools. This had a lot of outpour of rage from a lot of white families that didn't want their white children going to school with black children. So with this led Little Rock 9. So this was in Little Rock, Arkansas. There were 9 students who were trying to go to the white school, and there were a lot of outbreaks of violence because the families didn't want those kids going inside the school with their white children. And it came to where they had to have personal security and officers escort them into the school. And even then, the students and the teachers started attacking the students to where they could no longer go to the school. So this started a lot of outrage and helped lead up to the peak of the Civil Rights Movement. And from that, we got the Civil Rights Act of 1957, which is where everyone could vote. There's no racial segregation in voting. And then we also got the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This was when Lyndon B. Johnson was president. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 went into law to help prevent employment discrimination due to race, color, sex, religion, or national origin. Oh wait, I had something else to say about that. Oh yeah, so through all of this, there was a lot of outrage, which caused a lot of violence. Through this violence, it bred more and more violence, and it just got bigger and bigger, to which led up to Bloody Sunday. According to the Civil Rights Memorial, 41 people were killed while fighting for equality and freedom between 1954 and 1968 during the Civil Rights Movement. Let's just take a minute. 41 people died fighting for the same equality and freedom that we live and takes advantage of every single day. So that was Bloody Sunday. It was one of the most violent attacks that the African Americans had to experience. You could see there that there are officers, they were having peaceful protests, and the officers blocked off the roadway, pulled out their sticks, even though none of the marchers had any weapons on them, and just attacked them and beat them down until they left. In Montgomery, Alabama, we actually have a Civil Rights Memorial that has this giant little circle dome thing that has the name of all 41 victims that died while fighting for equality. But after that violence and through that violence, we also have the nonviolent resistance. One of the main leaders of the nonviolence resistance was Martin Luther King Jr., which we all know, but then we also have the mother of the modern day civil rights movement, Rosa Parks. December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks was sitting on a bus. And on buses back in the day, they were separated between the front of the bus, the clean side of the bus, which was where the white folks sat, and then in the back, dirty parts is where the black people were told to sit. And at one stop, a white man tried to get on the bus, and all of the seats in the front were full. So the bus driver asked 3 black men and Rosa Parks to stand up and get rid of their seats. The 3 black men stood up and cooperated and moved to the back to stand, and Rosa Parks refused. She was arrested on impact. This caused a lot of outrage for the black community because they're already so discriminated against, so why should they give the seats that they're, given? So this led to a 1-year bus boycott in Montgomery, and this is how she became the mother of the modern day civil rights movement. Then we also have Martin Luther King Jr., who led the nonviolent resistance.
1 minute.
According to the History Channel, more than 200,000 people, black and white, congregated in Washington, D.C. for a peaceful march. This peaceful march is when Dr. King gave his I Had a Dream speech. During Dr. King's last Sunday morning in 1968, he said, "We must all learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish as fools. We are tied together in an inescapable network of mutuality, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." So in conclusion, the civil rights movement of the 1960s was a fight for equality and justice. It had violence, death, and pain, but it also had hope, promise, and peace. People such as MLK and Rosa Parks are our national heroes who helped bring a nonviolent protest and leading the civil rights movement. So I just have one question for you. What's your dream?